friends, Amanda here. Welcome back to Handmade, not Hallmark, and today's card features some amazing products from Fawn. This fall card features all the wonderful colors of fall and some really fun die cuts. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. The first step that I wanted to get done was my background, and I just have a pre-cut panel of some Bristol smooth cardstock here, and I'm going to do some ink blending using my Distress Oxide inks in the color Speckled Egg. And I wanted to kind of do more of a muted sky instead of a really bright blue. I'm thinking kind of like the moody skies you get with fall, and I really felt like this color palette would help make the fall colors pop a little bit better. And I'm using a cloud stencil from My Favorite Things. You can use any cloud stencils. Fawn's got some great ones, whatever you have on hand, and to create this really fun sky. And I really love doing skies like this. I really feel it adds some interest to the background of a card. You could easily do pattern paper as well. There's some really great pattern papers out there that have some fun skies in the background. I know Fawn came out with a set that they all look like sunsets or sunrises, which I think would be really fun for a card like this. Once I have all of my layers done, I didn't need to do all of these layers. I just wanted to make sure I had enough for my little scene I'm creating, and I really wanted to focus on die cuts this time. As you guys know, die cutting is one of my favorite things to do for cards. There's just something about them. I feel like they're make for quick and easy cards. They're easy to work with. There isn't really a whole lot you have to do with them. So once I have my background all finished, I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of splatter in the background, just to add some texture. And I'm going to use the same speckled egg with a little bit of water and just spritz it on the background and let it set off to the side to dry a little bit while I work on my other elements. So the dies that I'm using today all come from Fawn, and they're older die cuts, and I really like kind of shopping my stash and using kind of older products. I know Fawn just recently had their fall release, and I got some goodies, so I'm super excited for those to come. But I really like going back through and using some older sets, kind of revitalizing them and kind of revamping them a little bit and bringing them back out. So I've got this Happy Fall die, and I cut it out of some wood grain cardstock, and I wanted to do kind of like a gradient color, but I wanted to do brown because I wanted all of the fall colors of the leaves to pop and kind of go really well with the brown that I wanted to do on my greeting. So I started with some vintage photo, and then I'm going to go in with ground espresso and kind of do a gradient from the bottom up. So the top is going to be lighter than the bottom, and I feel like this works out really great. Hindsight, I probably should have done regular dye inks instead of Distress because I added some glitter to it later on with my Aqua Nouveau pen, and it kind of washed out or oxidized the ink blending, but either way, it still looked nice. Once I had that done, I've got some stitched hills here that I cut using the same, using some, Fawn dies, and I just cut them out of some green cardstock that I had in my stash, and I'm doing some ink blending on these using some Rustic Wilderness regular Distress ink, and I'm just adding some interest to these hills just to kind of give them some depth to kind of go with the other ink blending that I did. And I don't really follow any kind of like patterns or shading or anything. I just kind of go with what I feel looks good, and it's okay if it's a little splotchy. I feel like it makes it look a little bit more realistic and natural that way. So I am using the stitched tree line borders today for my cards, and I've kind of edited the tree line border a little bit. I have cut some of the trees out in places that I didn't want them, just so I had a little bit more of a seamless kind of look that I was going for. I didn't want too many trees to overlap, but I wanted a few to overlap to make it look a little bit more natural. I know it's a card and it's die cut, so they're not real trees, but I wanted it to make it look a little bit more interesting with some overlapping. I'm using a top folding A2 size note card out of some brown cardstock, and I've adhered my ink blended piece right to the front of that, and it fits perfectly. And I'm going to use my paper trimmer to trim off any of the pieces that hang off on the side. Now, I started out with my smaller paper trimmer, and it just wasn't quite I guess sturdy enough to cut through all those layers of cardstock. So I did go in and use my scissors, and then later on I do bring out my larger paper trimmer just to help me get the trimming a little bit nicer. So once I had that first layer done, I'm going to go ahead and add this next one. And you can see here that I've got a few trees that are going to overlap, but once you get the actual like branch parts put on, I think it looks really nice. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it where I think it looks the nicest. And I'm just going to line that up with some liquid glue and just trim off all of that excess. Now you could easily, pop these layers up with foam tape if you want to add a bit more dimension. But I feel like with all of the layers I've got going on, and then the frame and the greeting, I think I have plenty of dimension on this card. But if you wanted to, you could definitely do that. I'm going to go in with this last layer here and get it lined up where I want it. And I like the way that that looks like that, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere it there. And the nice thing about using liquid glue, it gives you just a couple of seconds to kind of shift and wiggle things around until you're happy with them. And I loved all these little hills, really nice rolling hills in the sky. It just got me in the mood for fall. We're still kind of baking in the heat here in central PA. We've still got some warm weather, and we haven't had any rain. Not any real substantial rain. We've had a few pop-up thunder showers that last for maybe 20 minutes, but we haven't had any real good rain in quite a few weeks here. So the grass is turning brown and the leaves are changing, but they're not changing because of the season. They're changing because they're dying, and it makes me sad. So hopefully we get some rain here real soon so we can get those beautiful fall colors that we're all looking forward to. Once I had that all trimmed off and I'm happy with it, I did die cut a frame out of the A2 stitched frame dies from Lawn Fawn, just to kind of frame up my little scene I've got going on here. And I die cut all the little tree parts. So in this die, the stitched tree border, they have like, I think there's 3 of these kind of wonky shaped ovals, and they're meant to be the trees, which I think is super fun. So and I went through my stash and I die cut all these out of my favorite fall colors and kind of placed them where I felt they looked the nicest and where they fit really well together. And I think this border would be great for winter cards as well, because the trees are bare and you can definitely use those. I even think they would be cute if you did like a frozen scene where you have like different shades of blues and whites to make them look like frosty trees. I think that would be really fun. I had some extra like tree branches or tree trunks from whenever I trimmed off these, so I could kind of pick where I wanted to place them. And so I just glued those back into place where I felt I needed 1 or 2. And I really felt like it worked out nicely. So I had a couple of extra of those branches, or those trunks, and I really feel like it fills out the scene really nicely because I don't have any other stamped images here. These trees are the main focus of this card, so I really wanted to make sure it was nice and full of those fall colors. And I'm kind of just playing around, not adhering anything yet until I find exactly where I want to place them. And I think I've gotten to a point where I really like these, and I was a little impatient here. I glued this down right away and then I tried to cut it and poop, it fell off. So have a little bit of patience, man, and let things dry before you try to trim them off. So while that little tree is drying, I'm going to go ahead and go around and start adhering all of these trees to the background. And I don't have any adhesive on the back of the actual trunks themselves. I go ahead and do that later on. I add just a little dab of glue behind each of them, put an acrylic block on them to help hold them down, and it works out just fine. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Lawn Fawn just had their fall release for this year, and they have some amazing products. I did get a chance to order a few things, so I'll be looking forward to those coming in the mail soon and playing with those. And some other older sets that I got as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be really fun to play with those items. And the fact that they're going to have a separate holiday release, super excited. I can't wait. I'm so glad to get back into crafting. I'm having a blast making these cards. It's really putting me back into the crafting mood, and I'm really glad you guys were able to stop by and watch my video today. So I'm going to go ahead and get that last tree adhered down here, and I just love the way these look, and I love that you can kind of rotate them and make them look like different shaped trees and have a really good time with it. Lots of fun. So next I have my greeting here, and I felt like it didn't stand out a whole lot. I felt like it kind of faded into the background, so I went ahead and cut out another one out of some white cardstock, and I'm just doing a little bit of a drop shadow on this, and this just adds just a little bit of highlight to the die cut itself, just to make it pop a little bit more off that background. I tried a black one and I didn't like it. I felt like it was too dark, and I already got a lot of brown going on, so I felt like the white was just enough to give it a little bit more interest and make it pop. And then for the frame, I added some thin foam strips to it so I could adhere it around my frame. And a little trick that I learned to make sure you get everything kind of squared up is I take my MISTI stamping tool and I take out the foam pad, and so I can set everything kind of down inside of it and use it as a guide to help me line things up and make sure I get it nice and straight. Now I got it a little stuck here, wasn't quite the where I wanted it, so I just gently peeled that up and went ahead and aligned that up at the top, and everything's nice and square, and I can just press it right into place because I've struggled in the past trying to get these really thin frames on, so that's why I didn't use them a whole lot, but this trick really does help. Once I have my frame on there, I can go ahead and get my die cut lined up, and I just love the way that it looks. And then we're going to go in and add a few details just to add some more whimsy and fun to this card. It would be perfect just like this. You can make a whole pile of these cards and they would be super fun to give to friends or family, and they'd be good to go. So I'm just going to set some acrylic blocks on there and let it dry. Next, I wanted to add in some highlight details, completely optional. You do not have to do this. I feel like it just makes them look a little bit more interesting and adds just a little bit of fun to this. So I'm just adding some highlights with my white number 10 gel pen and just going around and adding just a few here and there on these trees. And I think it really kind of makes them pop and makes them stand out a little bit, which I think is super fun. There's no rhyme or reason to the way I do this. I just kind of pick a spot where I like it and kind of go with it. And I do the same sort of thing on each one of these trees. Then I wanted to go along the edge of the actual hillsides themselves. I was thinking maybe this kind of makes it look like the flowing grass, like when the wind blows. Maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit, but that's what I thought. And then I wanted to add some glitter to my die cut. And this is where I mentioned earlier that it probably would have been best if I used some dye ink, but either way it worked out fine. It still looks great and it's nice and sparkly just the way I like. And then one of the last things I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a pumpkin from one of my Lawn Fawn sets. I believe this is the costume party, and I'm going to stamp a little pumpkin on the inside of my card just to add a little bit more fun and interest. And then any greetings that I write on this will go on in gel pen. And that will finish up this card for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please consider hitting the like button as well as the subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos here at my YouTube channel. I again want to thank you for stopping by and hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye! On screen, I've got a few videos that I think you'll enjoy. Please consider hitting the like button as well as the subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos here at my YouTube channel.